Hi, this is Christy Abbey. I have a special guest today, Jesse Rabinowitz. If you recognize the last name, I had an Aaron Rabinowitz on a couple months ago, who was fascinating, and now I'm just trying to find out the fruit of the loins that Aaron sprung from, which just sounds pretty awful.
Yeah, I
Um,
know. I'm not sure not sure I'm ready to share my fruit.
um, I do a little research on everybody beforehand. It doesn't look like I do when I go in, but before I did any research, all I knew about you were you. You're one of my favorite people on Facebook.
Oh, thank
Um,
you.
you're also the father of one of my favorite people on Facebook. So,
Mm. One of my
and
favorite. He's one of my favorites too.
And when I came out as trans, you were the very first person to send a react, and it was a heart react, and I've never forgotten it. It was like the it was the thing that made me stop being afraid. So,
Ah,
um,
I'm so glad. I really, really am.
oh yeah, see, I'm gonna weep. I'm an easy crier.
I didn't wait. I didn't bring tissues. Damn it! All right. Oh, there are some. Okay, good. I'm ready.
All right, one last bit of housekeeping, and then we'll actually get into the thing.
Okay.
Um, I always forget to do the like and subscribe and hit the bell. And I do have a Patreon down there, and for one-time donations, PayPal. I'm not really mercenary about this whole thing, but I'm buying a new mic. So this is the last time I'll sound like I'm coming from a fish tank. um, so Jesse Rabinowitz is a clinical psychologist, and as I say, I want to know where people came from and how they got here. So, what started you on that?
Okay. Well, I actually hadn't intended to be a psychologist when I started college. I was hoping to be an actor, and so I was a theater major. And I got about maybe 2 or 3 years into that, and was beginning to get some cold feet about being in theater as a profession, as I saw more of my friends graduating and moving to New York, and saw, the kind of work they were doing or not doing, and the difficulty of the life there. It certainly began to feel to me, I think in retrospect, like I might have been a bit too middle class to do theater as a profession. It's the kind of profession that you really got to do because you got to do it,
Yeah.
because it's not an easy life. But nevertheless, so I didn't know what else to do. That was a lot of my angst at that time in life, was not having any idea what to do for a profession if it wasn't going to be theater. My father actually suggested that I consider taking a psychology course. I suppose he knew me well enough to think that that might be something that would be interesting to me, even though it had never really come up. And he wasn't a psychologist; he was an engineer himself. My mother was a teacher. So I took a psychology course, and I certainly took to it well. In large part, I think because the work in theater as an actor is so psychologized. I mean, method acting, all of the acting stuff that happened after Stanislavski was adopted in America by the method teachers, all of it was so close to experiential therapies that uh, the content and the area certainly seemed very familiar to me already. I think I probably already was interested in people. I think I was the kind of person who, as a friend, was a good, listener and counselor and all that stuff. People,
Right.
I had a friend. I used to sit in the student union a lot when I was an off-campus student. I'd sit in the student union between classes, and somebody called the table I sat at, Jesse's office. So I guess I was already doing that. And I think, my experience of people in psychology and who are therapists is a lot of us sort of do that because we're already naturally doing it.
Yeah.
But I still wasn't sold on it in any way. Didn't really think when I graduated that I was going to be a psychologist. I thought I was going to move to New York and teach acting with a friend of mine, and in fact was ready to do that. But I made a cross-country trip with Aaron's mom, my first, soon to be my first wife, and it was so heartrending and tearing, thinking that in the end of the trip I was going to move to New York, and she was a staff member. She was a costumer at Binghamton. She was going to stay there. It was so painful that I decided to stay in Binghamton, where I had done my undergraduate, and just see what happened. And I ended up working in a lab for my psychology mentor. And he was the one who said, well, why don't you go to clinical psych school? And I said, well, because I don't have any idea what any of that is. and I wasn't, I thought everybody else in psychology has got to, they're already ahead of me. I mean, they've been doing this, they intended this. He said, and he had confidence in me, and he said, no, do it. You'll be good. You'll be a good therapist. So I applied to a bunch of programs that year that I hung around in Binghamton, got into a program in Richmond, Virginia, and that was it. That's kind of how it all happened. So sort of really backed into it, fell into it, really.
That's kind of cool. I wanted, I always knew I was going to be a writer. That was a given. I started doing music because it was something that I wasn't good at, which is a strange thing, or not so strange. But the psychology I took as, okay, these are the things I need to know to be a good writer. So I wound up wandering into psychology that way.
Interesting.
And I could never do the clinical end of it because part of my undergrad thing was to deal. We had, at the time it was called an asylum, and I was doing doctor notes for that, and I didn't sleep for that entire period because it was so heart-wrenching.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. Every little bit of it.
Pretty painful and disturbing.
Yeah, I mean, it takes it takes, in a way, I mean, you do it, so you would know whether what I'm about to say is bullshit or not. Sorry, air conditioner. It takes being able to let a lot of that go, or not bring it home with you, and I couldn't not bring it home with me.
I think that's true. I think that's a challenge for people. Interestingly, I came to the work with a lot of defenses and a kind of a hard shell to some degree compared to other people that I have known along the way. And if anything, I had to work to soften, to allow things to affect me more than, whereas some of the people, I know, and some of the people that I sometimes teach they come from it the other direction, where they have to learn to, like you say, put some boundaries, leave things behind, find a way to let go when they leave the session. I mean, I still had plenty of anxiety after sessions and would be troubled after sessions and troubled in the middle of the night. But I don't think it affected me on the heart level the way it does a lot of other people at first, because I was so still in my head, which was a problem even as an actor for me. So it took a lot of personal work to learn to crack open the heart and be as affected as a lot of other people are when they first come to the work.
Yeah, well, I had a miserable childhood, so maybe that has something to do with it. And
Uh-huh.
every time we encounter someone with a miserable childhood, it's I can empathize so much. I just want to give you a hug and cry with you for an hour.
Ah,
You know.
how lovely. No, it is. You know, to be so open and to be so loving with people that way. Yeah, I admire that.
Well, it's not. I'm not saying for that. I'm actually. It was. Today was like a really rough day, so
Uh-huh.
it's one of those. I'm having a psychologist on, and I had like a totally shit couple of days. So,
Oh. Well, here we are.
You should charge me by the hour for a lot of the things I'll probably say. But what's you now? You have 3 kids. I couldn't actually tell, or 4.
No. I only have one kid, only Aaron.
You only have Aaron.
Just Aaron, yeah. And
Oh, okay.
now my wonderful daughter-in-law, Louisa, but Aaron is my only flesh and blood kid, yeah.
Louise is a sweetheart. I actually was reading her before I knew Aaron. I didn't even know
Oh.
they were connected
Oh,
in any
wow.
way.
Oh, well, yeah, they don't have the same last name or anything, and yeah, they're very different. Yeah, she's a
So,
doll.
yeah.
So yeah,
So
Aaron's the only one. Yeah,
I
Aaron didn't sleep for the straight through the night for the first 11 months. At about which point I decided, well, I think I'll just have one. Sleep deprivation and I don't get along very well.
yeah, that's um. How did you? What what was the household like? I mean, how do you? You're very leftist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we share that, and that's uh the, one of the things. What was that an always thing? Is that
The leftism?
yeah?
Yeah, my grandparents, 3 of them came from Poland and 1 came from Russia.
Cool.
And they all came over in the somewhere in the early teens, I think, probably, of the 20th century. And on the one side, on my mother's side, they were, pretty well out and out communists. And on my father's side, socialists and unionists. My grandfather on my father's side was involved with the garment center trade unions.
Yeah.
And my grandfather on my mother's side, who I never knew because he died when she was 13, came to America and he got a horticulture degree at a university, and he was uh, a gardener at the Bronx Botanical Gardens. But they were very involved with leftist politics. My mother grew up in a place called the Coops in the Bronx,
Yeah.
which was the first cooperative apartments in America. They had been, these were apartment buildings that were mortgaged by a bunch of communists and socialists, and they embodied in this environment their principles. They had union meetings, they had political meetings, they had classes for the kids in these kinds of concepts. It was integrated. There were interracial couples. It was a very, my sense about it is a very exciting and active nest of leftists. And so, yeah, we were raised by, I was raised by liberal Jews, their kids. I remember going to a Poor People's March in Central Park when I was a kid with my parents, and
Sure.
this was always very present for us, and a very strong part of our heritage, for sure.
You didn't. Well, we're my family is Spanish, so
Oh,
we were. Although Ashkenazi is a little bit of that, but mixed race.
uh-huh.
So
So
It's
Spanish, you mean Spanish like Catholic or Jewish or?
no Spanish like Spanish Jew, but um, Moorish mix,
Say it again.
Moor mix.
Okay, so
The
when you
the
say
more the Moor Moor.
so like so there was a lot of so there was Sephardic Jews,
Right,
the
Sephardic.
the more
Why do
southernmost.
I always get that wrong? I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Sephardic, and so what was the family name on that side?
Um,
Because Abby sure doesn't sound very Jewish.
Abby is no. Abby is they. It's hard to figure out
Ah, uh-huh.
because there was a lot of hiding of the names, and my father and my biological father, his name was Abi with the little swallow on it.
Oh,
So
interesting.
Portuguese. that side's
Oh,
Portuguese.
uh-huh.
So
Did the Jews on the Sephardic side stick around in Spain and Portugal up until the 20th century, or did they leave at some point, or what? How did that work?
um, it's well, I'm getting into it. I know you're the one who's just asking questions, man.
Well, I'm just curious now.
I actually had a very hard time finding out what happened with everything because a lot of things were purposely hidden and histories were purposely changed to protect people.
Yeah. Do you
For
know if that happened over there or when they came over here, the hiddenness?
well, some of it. For instance, my great grandmother, her bio online lists her as being born in Puerto Rico, and I know that's not true.
Oh.
I don't change it
Uh-huh.
because she was protecting her daughter from being an illegal immigrant.
Oh, wow. Uh-huh. Yeah.
So it's, but yeah, they ran away at some point, and it's hard to pinpoint how and why.
Uh-huh. Because
And
there was
they're
a lot of hiding farther back in Spain and the Iberian Peninsula, uh, and because of the forced conversions of Jews during the Inquisition and after, you know, and so
right.
there were this group called the conversos that were people who were outwardly Christian and maybe were secretly still practicing Judaism, you know.
Oh, absolutely. I'm pretty sure that's it. It's hard again. It's hard because of the how they wrote about their histories was very. None of it actually fits. If you were to make it into a puzzle, they're all sky pieces and none of them fit together.
Oh, interesting. How mysterious. Yeah.
So I know a lot about the Abbeys who I didn't grow up with.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Huh.
I know almost nothing about that side.
Wow.
And I've, as much as I've tried, finding out that my grandmother was an illegal immigrant was hard.
Yeah.
No, because it's not something you broadcast.
Yeah, there was an awful lot of that going around. We have some plaques, some little certificates from Ellis Island. They started issuing certificates retroactively to families of people who had come through Ellis Island.
Right.
And I guess the way it worked is there were only three. And we think that my paternal grandfather may have come in a boat from Canada illegally because I don't think we had a certificate for him.
It's one of those things. One of my disbeliefs, or you can't really call it disbelief. I don't really understand the concept. I've never been able to internalize it.
Mm-hmm.
The concept of borders,
Yes.
because at no point do they make. I can't get them to make sense to me.
Uh-huh.
It's not.
Well, they are artificial constructs, and they have a lot of elements to them. I mean, this debate over legal and illegal immigration, goes back to the beginning of the country, and there's a lot of political pieces, a lot of racial pieces involved, cultural pieces involved.
Well, sure. The at, at least, well, at least moving to Buffalo, the one interesting thing is the first thing I remember, because I moved as a as a teenager, and I was asleep in the car, and the first thing I remember seeing is a statue of Pulaski, who was trans general in the Revolution.
Really?
Yes. So, like,
He
all
was a
right,
trans general.
yeah.
I didn't know that.
Um, there's a lot of people say he's intersex, but
Yeah.
by golly, and if I got the name wrong, I'm really apologizing. My ability to deal with names today is almost non-existent.
I certainly saw a lot of Pulaski bridges and Pulaski named things. So, but that's interesting. So when you say you moved to Buffalo, where did you move from?
I'm from Long Island originally.
Oh, I didn't know that. I knew you were from Buffalo. I didn't realize that you'd originally been from the island.
Oh yeah, Southampton, but South. I was born in South. I was born in Southampton. We lived all over the East Coast, and as I say, I learned to tie my shoes in Tennessee. You've been moving. You're down in Virginia, right?
Yeah, I came to Richmond for graduate school and stayed. I grew up in the Bronx.
I can tell you grew up in the Bronx. That's still there.
Yeah. It gets a little heavier at certain times, like when we drive up there and cross the George Washington Bridge, I begin speaking in my mother tongue to the other drivers.
No, one of the things of getting rid of my stammer, the speech therapy, was getting rid of my accent.
Oh.
So, and now I have to do a whole nother voice. My whole nother life.
Yeah, identities. Yeah.
But when I talk to my mom, it's we talk in Hempstead.
Gotcha.
The well, what's I mean, you are a clinical psychologist down there? Are you with the university, or you're freelance?
Oh, no. I'm in a group practice. It's called Tucker Psychiatric. It's actually the oldest psychiatric practice in Richmond. It dates back to 1912. They had a sanitarium in 1912 on Franklin Avenue, one of these big buildings that, look like boarding houses, but in the old days it was a sanitarium. And then they eventually moved to a different setting, and they started a clinic called Tucker Pavilion at one of the local hospitals that's still there, although we're no longer associated with them. And I've been with Tucker Psychiatric for about 11 years now, 11 or 12 years. So,
is it? I'm guessing it. Well, what we started with, I'm guessing it gets easier as you go along, or
to do this work.
Yeah.
On one level, yes, because when my experience was when I first came out of grad school, the first 5 to 10 years, what I was doing never looked like what I thought it was supposed to look like based on what we had studied and the people we had watched and learned. And it took 10 years and more to get comfortable developing my own way of being, my own style, and getting comfortable with the idea that that was okay. There's a part of me that's a big rule follower and wants to do things just right. And so it took a long time to figure out that no, uh, this can look lots of different ways, and that the people I studied that I admired, the luminaries of the therapy world, were
Right.
really just doing the very same thing. They were trying things out and seeing how it went and changing based on what was happening and who they were. And they were making it up to some degree as they went along. And I try to teach that to my students too, that we all have to find our own way with it. Because it's a very strange practice, therapy. It almost defies definition in terms of what exactly it is. Uh, so it's a little hard to get a bead on it and to know whether or not what you're doing is what you ought to be doing and is doing what it's supposed to do. It's a lot of ambiguity being a therapist.
It's one of the things I often say is, okay, we know AA, for instance, is bullshit for a lot of reasons. But
Yeah. Uh-huh.
the things that work are
Uh-huh.
getting to the two pieces that get you to understand yourself, which is the community
Mm-hmm.
and the looking back at your past and seeing where things could have gone better.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of bad press for AA the past few years, and, probably some of it justified, but it's so many things for so many people. And as you
Yeah,
say, the community is a very powerful piece, the support piece. I mean, traditionally, psychology and psychiatry didn't do people with addictions much favors, frankly. We weren't very good at it. It's
no,
hard work. And so the 12-step programs, because they were so group and self-directed, offered something that we as therapists in an hour or two or three a week couldn't offer. Uh, I think some of the principles in the 12 steps are very powerful principles. Uh,
oh yeah,
I mean, as you know, I'm an atheist, so I don't ascribe to traditional religious concepts, but I do see value on a metaphorical, emotional level in the quote spiritual concepts in those 12 steps. I mean, there's a lot of meat there.
oh
Uh,
yeah, definitely. I mean, I've sometimes described what I've been doing lately. One of the things I'm doing during transition is trying to go back and examine what happened in my life.
mhm,
Sue two people who need to be sued.
uh-huh,
Uh, enough of that.
uh-huh,
And apologize to people. I'm just,
uh-huh.
this is understand part of what went wrong was I was in the wrong place. I was in the wrong. I It was all wrong, and I never knew how to set it right.
Yes, right. So there's some going back and making amends for yourself with other
Yeah.
people, which is a part of the 12-step stuff, I guess. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I didn't. I actually didn't do that when I was in AA. So
Oh, yeah. You never got to that step. What is that step? Six or
there's,
seven or something like that? Yeah.
yeah, I mean, made amends where you can, and
Right.
it's I'm often I'm often surprised at I'm often surprised at the people who remain my friends who probably shouldn't have, just because I treated them terribly over
The
the
people who
years, just
stuck
because
with you.
yeah, just because I hated myself. I like Pink at the end of the Pink Floyd song, Pink Floyd. Um, After all, it's not easy banging your heart against some mad bugger's wall.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, so it, yeah. things like that surprise me. Just um, in some ways, and this is my personal view. And please, like I said, we'll differ on some of this, but I think therapy, in a way, is good for most people.
Mm-hmm.
I think the people who most need it sometimes don't go or don't seek it out.
There's certainly a section of the population that doesn't go that you wish would, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, it's I have to. I'm legally obligated to be in therapy because of the transition, which
No
is
kidding.
Yeah. It depends on where you are, what the rules are, but they
Yes.
are here.
Yes. Luckily, some of that is changing in terms of some of the more paternalistic, controlling aspects of the laws regarding transitioning and having to show up with letters from therapists essentially clearing you for this or that process. Some of that's, I think, liberalizing in places, as it should.
That's true. I mean, like I said, I wound up talking more about myself today. It's like I get
that a lot, man. Don't worry.
There is very much a part of me that liked all the gatekeeping.
Oh yeah,
because up until a few hours after I put on the first estrogen patch, I was hesitant and unsure, and everybody else is telling me, yeah, that's fine. My the person I call the first Mrs. Abby, we weren't actually married. When I texted her that I was a trans woman, she said, yeah, I know. She hadn't seen me in 20 years.
Wow. There's some powerful validation.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, have you dealt with a lot of trans people in the?
No, I
practice?
actually haven't. I'm learning now much more. I have worked with a lot of people from the LGBT community for many years, since the beginning, really, and was considered in Richmond, one of these people who was gay affirmative as a therapist. And so, I saw, I think, probably more than my share. And that was fine. That was part of my preference to do that. But less folks from the trans community. And I think even for a time, when I would be contacted about it, I would try and steer them to someone who I thought knew more. But here and there, when you're seeing people, you don't always know that this is going to become the issue, and so little by little, I've had more exposure and done more learning about it and taking workshops and reading and so on, And of course, as in the culture where there's so much more out there now, thank goodness, so much more accessible information.
Yeah, I picked a strange time to come out, but we're transitioning while the world is transitioning.
Yeah, I mean, in many ways, this is the best time. I think the best time to come out because, there's so much more awareness and so much more acceptance now than there was. My God.
Well, the therapy thing is kind of what did it for me. Although I went to 1.5 sessions before I went, okay, I'm trans. Let's deal with that now.
1.5 sessions. You mean actual sessions or 1.5 bouts of therapy?
Oh no, 1.5 sessions.
Oh,
I was like, okay, this is what I'm struggling with, and she listened, and I talked, and she asked some pertinent questions, and then
Uh-huh.
somewhere in the second session, I'm like, okay, I'm trans.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
It got really clear, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
The do you have a lot of people come out to you? I would assume then, if you've got,
You mean in my work itself?
yeah, in your work itself.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Uh, Most of the people that I work with from the LGBT community, most of them are already out when they arrive in my office. I have, particularly earlier on, there were more notable coming out during the process of therapy, back in the days when so many more people were in the closet. So now it's more like the people
Yeah.
that I see from the community are already out to some degree to themselves and to others. But often that is a part of the work, is people at varying degrees of the coming out process who are working through the issues of coming out to themselves, to their families, to their friends, in their workplaces.
Hmm. Yeah, coming out to everybody else was that I did it on one line on Facebook is the thing I find weird.
Ah,
You know?
so that was your public official coming out, huh?
Yes, two or three,
Oh.
a handful of people I told beforehand,
Uh-huh.
and my kid accidentally outed me to some.
Oh, oh no. Like that movie with Kevin Kline.
Yeah, pretty
Remember that
much.
movie where he gets
Oh
out
yeah,
by his former student? Oh God.
you have no idea how much that movie freaked me.
Oh, really? Did it? When you saw it?
Yes.
Yeah. Because you saw it before you were out to yourself?
Oh yeah, it wasn't. Yeah,
Ah, yeah.
I came out to myself in 1989, and then immediately put that in a trunk and put it in a closet somewhere.
You mean the information itself or the movie?
Oh no, I still have a copy of the movie.
But you came out to yourself in '89 and then you closeted the awareness?
Yeah,
Yeah. For a long time, huh?
yeah. I had a friend, and we both disclosed to each other one night, and
Uh-huh.
promised never to come out. And she came out about a year, almost a year to the day before I did.
Oh,
So
wow.
there you go.
Wow. Well, I'm glad you're out.
The the clinical. If I if I could do labs, I'd go into psychology. If I could just do, the well, of course, I'd want to do the Milgram test over and over again because I have power trip fantasies. But the sorry, that was me being
Very
silly.
dark. The Milgram test. Eesh.
Well,
It's amazing what we allowed in those days, what you could get away with doing research with, in terms of your participants. It's changed so much since then.
yeah, but uh, at least I at least hmm, Skinnerism is not a thing anymore, which you know, thankfully,
Is not Skinnerism is not, what
a,
did you
th-
say?
a thing.
Oh, yeah. Well, it morphed, I mean, it morphed into cognitive behavioral therapy, which uh, slowly incorporated the elements in the black box that Skinner kind of wanted no part of: thoughts,
Right.
images, certainly feelings. So behaviorism has come a long way. It's not my way of seeing things, but it certainly has humanized significantly since Skinner.
What did you think of Peck?
Of
Peck.
oh, uh, Peck.
The feeling good. That was the tome of
No,
cognitive.
Beck. They
Did I say? Oh,
you said Peck. I thought maybe you were thinking of Scott Peck, The Road Less Traveled.
which
Beck.
is cool.
Yeah, I mean the cognitive stuff has its place for me. Beck and Ellis's rational emotive therapy and so on.
Yeah.
Cognition is a real thing, and our cognitions do impact our feelings and our behaviors, and our feelings and behaviors impact our cognitions. So I have no argument with it. It was always too narrow a focus for me. The school that I came up in, and the schools of therapy that I was most attracted to, were larger and more holistic. Gestalt therapy and some of the experiential therapies, where cognition was part of it, but feeling and movement and breath and experiential process was a big part of that stuff. And it was much more like theater, which I, again, had been, quite used to. And so for me, the cognitive behavioral stuff was too narrow and too structured, and a bit mechanical for my tastes.
Well, early on, did you do the beating the pillows with the baseball bat thing?
Early on, and to this day, to some degree. I just finished teaching a Gestalt elective for some counseling students up at George Mason in Fairfax, and we did a weekend of that, and there were some pillows, and there was that sort of thing. Sure, yeah, we did a lot of that when I was coming up. It was the richest, best therapy I've ever been involved in.
I like it, except for the fact that, I mean, to a point, aggression can be a ladder on itself. It can feed on.
Oh, sure.
Feed on itself, and
that's right.
Worse. It's like people who yell at video games don't understand that they're more likely to get yelly at video games.
Yeah, I think that was probably an early oversimplification, that simply getting the feelings out in the open and physicalized worked for everybody. It was helpful for those people who were bound up and who internalized too much or were unaware of things like their own anger. It's certainly not helpful for people who are disinhibited with their anger and who already are acting it out. Those people have to learn how to boundary, how to delay gratification, how to be more deliberative,
Yeah.
Or how to contact the more tender emotions, that sometimes anger, especially for men, becomes the emotion that they are most comfortable with, but sadness, disappointment, grief, tenderness, is harder for so many men. And so for those folks, they need to, go in that direction.
Yeah, one of the things I tried on for a number of years was being toxically masculine.
Oh, yeah?
That didn't work very well.
I could only imagine. It's awful.
There was a lot of anger in my...
Yeah, you acted out the macho dude for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't pull it off. The other macho dude just said, "What are you fronting?"
Good that you didn't pull it off. The people that really pull it off scare me.
I fear a lot of the angry people. Not that they're going to hurt me. Just I see. This is the discussion from before. I can't not internalize other people's emotions.
Sure.
And if I were working with lab rats, I probably would be fine.
Uh-huh.
Don't really do that much except for medical stuff.
Right.
I never asked you how old are you, if it's all right to ask?
Yeah, I'm 61.
61. So I'm 54. We're not too far off from the same
Right. Half generation.
generation.
Yeah.
Although I suppose I can shake my fist at you and go, lousy boomer, and you can just say lazy Gen Xer.
Right. Right.
So when we were coming up in slightly different circumstances, just for the way the rapid change of that time.
Yes. Right. You were coming of age in the early to mid 80s, right?
Well, teenage. I graduated in 83, graduated high school in 83.
Right. So I came of age in the early to mid 70s. And like you say, the culture took that rapid, accelerated change from about the late 60s, on. Right.
Sure. Although once in a while, I'll just for fun, I take one of those pictures of Woodstock where they have a big thing of the crowd and you can't really make out anybody and just point and say, I was there. That's me.
Yeah, you have some identification with that.
I was there.
Oh, were you really?
Yeah.
No kidding.
I was 4. I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't remember any of it.
But how remarkable to be able to say that you were at Woodstock, and at 4 of all things. I remember the little kids, clamoring around, the hippies kids, I didn't go to Woodstock, but I remember seeing that generation of child who were being raised in communes and things like that.
My my aunt has had a very bad negative loop on that. As much as she's still hippie, she also communes were terrible, polyamory was terrible. We tried all the stuff and we didn't do it right. We learned from you.
Right, but she's right. The experiments were a mixed bag.
Yeah.
There's a good book by T. Corrugasian Boyle called Drop City about the darker sides of the commune stuff. He's also got a book out this year, a fictionalization of Timothy Leary's period after Harvard, that also carries some of the downside of those movements.
What was the name of the author?
T.C. Boyle is how I usually see it. T.C. Boyle, Boyle. T. Corrugasian Boyle, good writer.
Sorry, I was writing it down because I'm very fascinated by that period and how for instance, my stepfather had been Hitler Youth.
Had been
Hitler Youth.
Really? Your stepfather had been?
Yes.
Wowee.
I do not. I will never understand how he and my mom got together because they are not. My mom's very flamboyant. She's in the arts.
Wow. Well, but if he was Hitler Youth, it means that he was a kid.
Yeah.
And that was the Boy Scouts, and that was what you joined up if you were a kid in Germany at that time.
He never quite let go of it.
Yeah.
That's whenever I tell stories about growing up sometimes, just the things that happened to me when I was growing up, and when people are telling their stories of them, and I'll say something and the entire room stops and they go, "What?"
Yeah. Like my stepfather was in the Hitler Youth.
Yes.
That's a conversation stopper right there.
Well, that one I know is weird, but I told somebody recently, just the other day actually, I haven't owned a gun since I was 8.
Well, it reminds me of the William S. Burroughs line in Naked Lunch, in the film Naked Lunch. He says, "I gave up writing when I was 10. Too dangerous. Too
Too
dangerous.
dangerous. Absolutely. God. Yeah, William Burroughs. I don't think there's no writer I know who hasn't read William
Yeah.
Burroughs. Thankfully, although I think we know how to tell linear stories slightly better.
He could be challenging to read. It took me decades to get through Naked Lunch. So difficult.
It's well, I can honestly say that Thomas Pynchon is kind of master. Yeah, I'm not a huge Pynchon fan.
Hmm.
I thought Gravity's Rainbow was, a lot of masturbation jokes with.
Ah. I never
Very,
read that. I only read Crying of Lot 49,
which is good.
and then that very recent one he did that was kind of his own little Lebowski book. He wrote one a few years ago about a detective, a sort of surfer hippie detective story. But I liked Crying of Lot 49.
Oh, that is a good book. That one I'll defend. But Gravity's Rainbow never. Is there any, I'm trying, yeah, I thought my stutter would go away once I started this. Apparently, it's been, like I said, a couple of bad days, so I'm kind of just wandering into places I don't normally go.
Okay, it's not noticeable as a stutter, when you say that, but I get that you're commenting on your speech pattern, but it doesn't come across as a stutter, honestly.
Well, I hope not. But the wandering is definitely more than I expected to do.
Okay.
Well, you're the one that listens.
Right.
That's your thing. Although I noticed we're both playing with black bands on our hands.
I know, I've been fooling with this the whole time. Yeah.
It's kind of very funny.
Our fidget, what do they call them? Fidget spinners?
Yeah. Oh, that's next week's guest trying to get a hold of me.
She's mine.
Probably.
She's mine.
We will probably be a little more linear. This was not a linear storyline, which is fine too.
Yep. I'm content to bop around wherever you want to go. So.
But you have you're on your second wife now.
I'm on my second wife, and she's on me.
Hopefully, as much as you want to be.
In the best possible ways. Yeah.
Are you in? I know Aaron a little bit. Well, I know Aaron through Facebook and from talking to him. That was a lot more linear. And Lou, who I haven't talked to, but just from reading her. So the family thinkers, the family of thinkers you are.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah. A lot of interiority.
Yeah. What do you like any bad TV shows?
I like good TV shows. The ones I like must be good because I like them.
It's just an odd question. I mean, because I asked a similar question of Aaron too, because
Yeah.
we the good place is like the holy grail
Oh
of
yeah.
our of the online philosophers in space group.
Right. Right. Yeah, I like Good Place. I love Rick and Morty, you know. I know Aaron's been talking up Letterkenny lately. I rather like Letterkenny a lot.
Haven't watched it yet, so
It's really funny, really witty, clever, smart stuff. Yeah.
oh,
So yeah, no, I my tastes in the arts range pretty broadly. I mean, there's a lot of different things and a lot of genres I like.
which is good. I mean, it's yeah. Back in the toxically masculine, I also used to try to show off my intellectual superiority, and it was kind of like, how the fuck am I doing this?
Nah,
I know I'm smarter than everybody, but
yeah,
what am I trying to prove?
I get that. I get that. I was never athletically masculinely aggressive, but I certainly tried to beat people up with my intellect for sure.
Oh, yeah.
So I understand that.
The we have we managed to actually go an hour.
Oh gosh.
Thank
Okay.
goodness. I mean, I'm not going to ring a bell on you or anything. A few more minutes if you got it.
Yeah, sure. Whatever you want, man.
Because I've been really.
Woman. I'm sorry. I think I've misgendered you twice, and I'm really sorry about that. I call everybody man, so that's I get
Yeah,
I can be forgiven for that. But I think I referred to you as he a few minutes ago, and I apologize.
yeah. I let it go. It was. I tend to let misgendering go if it's not done in malice.
Ah, okay.
It's just
Well, thank you for letting it go.
you're not you're not malicious. I'm hoping not.
No,
You
no,
haven't.
not not towards people in the LGBT community. I get pretty malicious these days towards the alt right. That's for sure. I got plenty of malicious for those folks.
That is last. The first time I encountered you is well on the podcast Embrace the Void, where you were trying to figure out whether Trump was narcissist or not.
Yeah, when we unpack narcissism, yeah, yeah, he passed that test with flying colors.
Oh yeah, it's like,
Yeah,
how do people not see this? It's like a checklist he's doing in crayon.
he's fucking textbook. Except he's a little shades over a little more towards the sociopathic end of that spectrum, a little more than some narcissists I've known.
Well, I'm told from keeping up in the literature that we try not to use the sociopath, psychopath anymore.
Oh yeah, what do they use now? Antisocial personality disorder?
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, fuck him. He's a sociopath.
no fucking question. No, I mean, where's the conscience? There's no ethics. I know narcissistic people, but his lack of an ethical sense at all, his willingness to lie so readily, and his will to power is terrifying.
Yeah, I again, it's one of those things. But I understand that narcissists can get people on their side. That's
Yep.
part of their thing.
Yeah, the charisma, sure.
I don't see the charisma,
No.
but
I never watched his show, but I get the sense that a lot of people relate to him from that persona. And, to people who are given towards authoritarianism, they're always looking for some sort of overly confident, charismatic messiah figure, and he's it.
yeah, I suppose.
I think so.
it's gonna kill him in a few minutes because he's got a raging lunatic. I don't actually know what Giuliani is, but raging lunatic is the best I can come up with.
He's certainly not very good at maintaining the thread of the lies without saying shit that gets them all in trouble. He was hoping that's among the elements that brings them all to the fucking ground. It's enough already. We've been traumatized enough now for a few years in the nation.
Yeah, I wish there were more Kurds alive to, watch them get taken down. That was... I honestly didn't... I was honestly trying not to go with sociopath for a long time, and again, because we're not supposed to use it anymore, but... And using the old different, I suppose, the middle ground difference, which is, psychopaths are born, sociopaths are made.
Right. Yeah. I just wonder. But the Kurds and the children in cages, that's about as bloodthirsty as you can get without going full concentration camp, gas chamber stuff. It's pretty shocking.
Oh God, what was his name? His second campaign manager, the one that went to jail for the rest of his life.
Who, Manafort? Manafort, you mean? Yeah.
Paul Manafort looks exactly like my stepfather, so that may have had a lot to do with the way.
Oh dear. Not a happy association.
But the drop sign at the during the elevator speech is the thing that always catches me. Did somebody dropped a sign and left? So there's hope for everybody.
Oh, interesting.
Did you see?
I didn't see the elevator speech. I missed the whole elevator thing.
Or escalator, sorry.
Escalator, right.
Yeah. It's the one thing that gives me hope for America is that somebody dropped a sign and left. And they were getting paid. So.
Right.
So, I'm sorry I did more talking than you did.
It was okay by me.
That's not my usual route.
Well, I mean, it's nice to get to know you, It's nice to have dialogue, So
yeah,
I just hope it was what you wanted, so.
Well, yes. I when I was thinking about this yesterday, I was wondering how much research I should do. And I said, well, I mean, we know each other through memes and, comments and stuff. And I know a little bit from just your Facebook page. I said, you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna just go with this. And you're a clinical psychologist. I'm having a couple bad days. I'm probably gonna just talk.
It was perfectly fine by me.
I enjoyed it. I hope it was okay with
Yeah, I had a great time.
What you liked. We will speak again.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me on.
Oh God, thank you for coming. I'm always heartened that somebody comes and talks to me.
Oh, my pleasure.
So I have to do the there's a prayer all YouTubers do at the end of their videos, which is like, subscribe, hit that bell so you get notifications. There's a Patreon down below and a PayPal for one-time gifts. Help me pay for my new microphone. But I'm still working on my ending, which is, damn it, I had it written down. See, your life is worth something. Live your life.
Oh, man.
Thanks again, Jesse.
Sure thing. Really good hanging out with you, Christy. Be well. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.